So for today's tutorial, we're going to be leveling up our audio visualizers using Blender 3.4. Okay, so welcome back to the channel, everyone. It has been a while since we last did an upload. So Happy New Year! Happy Christmas. Hope you all had a really good festive period. Yes, we are into February now, but hey, Happy New Year. Okay, so today we're going to be looking at building a really cool, it's going to be simple, but it's going to be quite a different take on the visualizer. Visualizers you may have seen through various tutorials will show you how to drop a track into the graph editor and then let the animation take over from there. So it does react to music, but what we're going to do is something a little bit more scientific today. So we're going to start off with Blender 3.4.1. You should be okay with anything Blender 3 onwards. So don't worry about going to the latest. Anything with geometry nodes is fine. We're also going to be operating in Eevee, but you could do this in Cycles. It's just a lot quicker in Eevee. So the first thing we've got is our default cube. We're not going to delete it. Instead, we're going to go into geometry nodes and we're going to delete the group input. So I've not deleted the default cube. I've just changed its form. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put in a mesh circle. Put this into here. And there you go. You can see your circle, 1 meter for 2 vertices. You can play around with these figures, and we'll have a look and see what happens when you do that later. But what we're going to do now is going to do an instance on points. So we're interested in of the points on this circle. So instance to points. Actually, it's instance on points. Plug in there, and immediately disappears. And what we want to do is we want to put something interesting in the instances, and we're going to put cubes. Now you can play around with this, put other things in here. Cylinders look quite cool as well. So straight away we have 1 meter cubes on a 1 meter radius, so it looks densely packed. So let's make this a little bit smaller. 0.1 works quite nicely, and what we have is a ring of cubes. But we don't want them to point this way. We kind of like to have them normal. So what we're going to do is we're going to have another Control A. We've got normals. What we're going to tell the computer to do is to rotate these cubes so that they are aligned with the circle. And then the next one is align. Align. You layering to vector. I want to put the rotation into... No, we don't want to put it into vector. We want to put the rotation to rotation. And you can see that's worked out quite nicely. So you can see straight away there that they're all lined outwards from the normal. And you can do this on other things like cylinders and such like. So it's quite a powerful tool that is very useful for your projects. Let's put these to one side for now. Now what we want to do is we want to create some kind of very basic animation effect here. And what we're going to do, how we're going to do that, is we're going to have our Voronoi texture, and we're going to put that into the scaling. So we'll do distance to scale. There we go. And what you'll see there is it's scaling in all 3 directions. Now you can, yeah, it's great, you can do that, but the problem is when we start to make these quite large, they'll start overlapping each other, and that's not great. So let's put our multiply in. I want to make it a bit... Oh, no, it's math. I'm trying to write multiply. It's actually math I'm after. So plug the math into there, and let's multiply, make a big number. You can see there straight away, it's going over. So that's not especially great. What we're going to do is we're going to tell it, make that big, and I only want this to go in the Z direction. So I need to break this scale down. So if I declutter that, you can see this affects all 3 scale directions. So, whoops, don't want to do that. I want to do that. So I want to break it down, and to do that, we use a combine XYZ node. That way, there we go. And we want to make them 1. There you go. So it's out only affecting in the Z direction, and that's pretty cool. I like that. So that as straight into that now. Shall we? Yeah, you know what? Let's do the basics just to show what we're doing today. So what you're probably used to seeing if you're making visualizers, and I'll put this to the graph editor, what you might be used to seeing is, say, insert keyframe. Okay, got that switched on, make sure that is switched on, and then you go to key, bake sounds to F curves, and let's just move this over here. So we need to get a better filing system. There we go. And there we are. Yeah, there you go. Now I've picked this track, Patrikios, even, sorry, Dark Side, very cool track. What you're used to seeing is it's probably something like that, where you just drop that in and we can play around with some of these numbers. That sometimes looks pretty cool. There we go. And that is your absolute bare basics visualizer. And you know, that's pretty cool. It'll react. It looks pretty cool against the music. The problem is though, it's every layer of that track. So if I was to, let's stop this so you can actually hear it. What I want to do now is go to video sequencer. No, I don't want to go to video sequencer. I do want to go to video sequencer. There's something a bit creepy going on there. That's weird. Okay, let's go back to that screen and do it here. Creepy, weird stuff. Let's put video sequencer. And then if I go back to my file and I just drop that track in there and then we play it, okay, so you get the impression from that track. There's a lot of things going on. And what we want to do is not necessarily have this particular beam react to everything. We want it to react to certain parts of it. So let's go back into our graph editor. Let's go back to geometry nodes. Let's just kill that one. Clear keyframes. Now what we want to do is let's leave Patrikos's Dark Side in there. It's free to download from YouTube Studio. There's plenty of versions of it online as well. What I want to do now is we want to break this down into its kind of sub levels, so individual instruments. And I found a really cool website to do that. It's called Moises, and essentially what you do is it's free for a limited number of tracks. What you do, you drop your track in, you get it to do a track separation, and then it'll spit out another folder. And in that folder, it will divide your track into each of these individual bits. So if I was to click that one, okay. And then same with that one. Then Menotron. And finally this one. So it's subdivided it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do something very similar to what you typically used to seeing through other Visualiser tutorials. But this time we're going to divide it. So I go to insert keyframe again. But this time I want to make sure that's selected, insert keyframe, bake a sound, and I want to do that one. So now, when I go to timeline, okay, it's not immediately obvious, but when we start adding more detail, now let's move this one over here. D down to there, and then join geometry there. Now what we want to do is we're creating another circle, so we're going to make this one, let's say 0.75. You can see that it's now created 2 rows of our effects. Want to play around perhaps and make that a little bit bigger. And on this one, I always like to put it back to 0 there. Add another insert keyframe. Graph editor. Again, oops. Make sure that that is connected, that's selected, and that's selected at the same time. And then fake sound, and we go for that bit there. So that middle bit is now reacting to, and you can play around with the scaling there as well to make it do some pretty funky things. And then let's add a final, Shift D, a little bit of organization. You might find that some of these cubes and some of these nodes can actually be common nodes. Okay. And then same again, go back to 0. We want to make that one a little bit bigger, so let's make it 1.25. I want to bring that down a little bit lower, and then insert a keyframe, and again, always make sure that's selected, and that's selected, and the final bit there. You can see that that one is quite a bit lower, so it's going to react like that. That's pretty cool, and yeah, that is your fundamental, absolute basic engine behind this. So let's start adding some more detail. So we're going to do a set material. I want to put that there. I'm going to Shift D, Shift D, Shift D, put them in there. And then what we want to do is we want to go to this. I'm going to do something very basic here, and we're just going to call this inners. Go to that, create a kind of silver CO. Helps if we actually can see what I'm doing. Inners. And what I'm going to do, let's switch this over to that mode there. I want to make it shiny, so let's have metallic. That's down, the roughness. These on. Let's turn blue on as well. Reflections. So let's zoom in there, and let's make the background really dark. Okay, that doesn't look tremendously impressive yet. However, we're about to weave some magic. Let's go to one of these. And what I'm going to do is we're going to create a bit of a light effect around each one of these. So we want to go to meshed curve. You've seen me do this before if you're a fan of the channel. Let's put that to there. Curve to mesh. Put that down to join geometry. So that's created another band. It's around this middle one here. So you can't see it yet, but it is there. And what we're going to do is we're going to go circle, curve, or curve circle, or the other. It's going to go crazy now. And we're going to make that tiny. About there. So you could just about see a line around this. Okay. What we want to do is go set material again. Go into our materials. New material. Let's call it beam 1. And what I'm going to do is a very simple emission. Let's put this on beam 1. To there, and make it sort of 5. Let's play around with that. I quite like the effect, the way that's kind of bouncing up. It's animated. It looks really cool, that. Of course, you can play around with this. Okay. So also, before you go any further, just make sure you've got switched on bloom and subspace reflections, and that allows the light to bounce off. Even in EV mode, it allows the bounce from emission to go onto these parts here. So let's just copy that. So Shift D, and I need to go down here somewhere. Oh dear. Easier if I just do that. Join, beam 1, and let's create some more. Let's do that very quickly. Could just do it this way, actually, it's a lot quicker. Into shading, copy, color beam 2, and let's change that to that. Helps if you have it switched on. Beam 2. And just play around with it. Play around with it. Same again. Shift D, down here, connect up to there, and in you go. And let's make that one another one. Shading, duplicate again, and then let's call that beam 3. And again, it helps if you actually select the right 3. So that is fundamentally your basic layout. I'm just checking what we did before. Let's put 0.01. Tell you what, let's do a value. It's quite useful if you want to make everything consistent. Circle. One. There we go. Actually, that's quite cool. That's, you know what, I think I prefer that over... Oh, yeah, you know what, I think I kind of prefer that one over that. So that is... Very quickly. There we go. So you can see here now how... Let's pause that up. You can see here now how each one of these is kind of reacting to a different part of that instrument, essentially. We've divided the track into its individual instruments and then assigned it to a particular part of the visualizer. And I think that looks really quite cool, actually. So one last thing we're going to do to our geometry node. I like to put a little ring around this. So we're going to go, let's find a little bit of space. In fact, let's move this up here. No, we're done with all that stuff down there, and we want to do a mesh curve, mesh circle even. Let's plug that straight into there. Let's make that a bit wider. Let's actually rig it so we can see it. I think I've gone a bit too far there. 1.5. 1.75? There you go, 1.75. And then it's mesh curve. Curve to mesh. Curve circle. Looks like a giant donut. Let's make that a little bit easier to see. It doesn't need to be as big as that. Again, play around to your heart's content. Actually, that's the point. We were going to very quickly play around with that number, weren't we? Let's just add a value. Let's put it into there. Oops. It's around here somewhere. 32. 32. And that one up to there. Okay, so if I zoom in now, let's just see what happens. So we can start making, let's say 62. Let's make it pretty big. It's quite a lot going on there, but you can see by having more of these vertices, then it does populate a bit more. It makes it look a bit smoother. Final thing we're going to do is we're going to add a bit of set material. Set material, and go into your shading tab. Add another one. We're not going to do especially crazy. We're just going to do that, and let's make that. Let's see there. Always remember to set. There you go. So there you go. That is your absolute basic visualizer with a bit of a twist. And of course, there are a variety of things you can do to the background to make it stand out a bit more. But yeah, that's essentially it. So let's put this up on screen. So just to go through it one more time. You only really need to worry about one of these. We start off with our mesh circle, instance to points. We put a cube into there. You can put anything you want in there. You can put cylinders, you can put spheres, even a bespoke geometry in there if you wanted. Then we added there we go. The align to vector node, set to normal, so they're all pointing outwards. Put that into position. Scaling, or even rather rotation. Scaling, we want to multiply. Voronoi texture, we used this Minowski Voronoi. You can use anything you want. Wave textures work brilliantly as well. We applied it only in the Z direction, and then we have essentially two bands now where we go, right, I want to get the kind of a line around each of these cubes, and I want to animate that with a beam, or rather illuminate it with a beam, and then we've got this finally put an inner in, and that is just kind of a shade like that. In fact, this, if you have the computational firepower, you could set this to let's put that to 500. Let's set that to, let's just make it 200. I might find actually that the image looks pretty cool. Even as a standalone, actually, that's not a bad background. Let's see. So that looks a bit dull at the moment. If you put it to Eevee mode, we've turned our balloons on, so it should be pretty quick. This 0.3 of a second. That looks pretty cool as is. But if you were to go into compositing and add just a simple glare, set it to fog glow, so just to see there. And then we hit the render. Make sure you use node to switch on. Hit the render again, but on your cycles. GPU compute is important. Have that set to low. It doesn't need to be 4000. I don't know why Blender does that. Turn that on. So it takes a little bit longer to run. It's now going to do that. That looks pretty cool as well. So there's a wealth of things. The only problem is that's going to take 5 seconds. Now, normally a music track is going to be about 3 minutes, 24 frames. So that is going to take a mountain of time to animate as an animation. Yeah, probably best to stick to Eevee, really. So let's stick to Eevee. And the way to output this, if you're curious, is you let's pick a location. Let's, temp file's fine. Visualiser 1, accept. You want to switch that one to MPEG. I found these work really best for me. MPEG 4, set to medium quality. I like perceptually lossless, and MP3, and that's it. Off you go, and that is pretty much it. The only other thing to add is that for the music, we want to make sure we get it all in. Actually helps if you're on the video. There we go. So you can see this track, Dark Side, goes quite far. So you just want to make sure that you do indeed capture the whole lot. And I think the quick sum is let's say 2.75 times 24 times 60. So it's 24 frames per second, 60 seconds, two and a bit minutes. It's going to go over line and just drag that back until it lines up. And when you're happy, hit the go button, and there you go. It will animate that, and yeah, that'll look pretty cool when it's done.